When she invited her sister over for a casual sleepover, I didn't think much of it. But as the night unfolded, it became clear that I wasn't just an innocent bystander in their plans. Before I knew it, I was the one they were playing with, and things quickly spiraled into something I never saw coming. My wife, Julia, had been planning a sleepover with her sister, Anna, for weeks. She was excited about it, and I didn't think much of it at first. Julia and I had been married for a few years, and Anna would come over often. The two of them were close, always laughing together, sharing stories from their childhood. So when Julia asked if Anna could spend the night, it seemed like a harmless family gathering. Little did I know that this night would be anything but ordinary. The night began like any other. We had dinner, the three of us sitting around the table, chatting about mundane things: work, family, weekend plans. There was an ease between us, the comfortable rhythm of people who knew each other well. But there was something else too, something subtle. A flicker of tension beneath the surface, a look shared between Julia and Anna that I couldn't quite place. I brushed it off, telling myself I was imagining things. After all, I knew them both well. What could be more innocent than a sleepover between sisters? As the evening wore on, the atmosphere shifted. It was almost imperceptible at first. A lingering touch on my arm from Julia, a laugh that lasted a little too long from Anna. They were both in high spirits, their laughter echoing through the living room as we watched a movie together. But there was something in the way they moved, the way their eyes met, that made my pulse quicken. It was late by the time we decided to call it a night. The lights in the house were dim, casting soft shadows across the room as Julia turned to me with a playful smile on her lips. "Why don't you join us in the guest room?" she asked, her voice light and teasing. I raised an eyebrow, unsure of what she meant. "Join you? For what?" Julia glanced at Anna, and the two of them shared a look that made my stomach tighten. Anna smiled, a slow, knowing smile, before she turned her gaze back to me. "We were thinking it might be fun," Julia continued, her voice soft, almost a whisper. "You know, all of us together, like old times." My mind raced, trying to make sense of what she was saying. The playful tone in her voice, the way she looked at me. It all felt like a game, but not the kind we usually played. My heart began to beat faster as the implications of her words sunk in. This wasn't just a casual sleepover between sisters. There was something more to it, something unspoken that hung in the air between us. "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Julia leaned closer, her hand resting on my leg. "Why not? It's just for fun." My eyes flicked to Anna, who was watching us with an expression that sent a thrill of excitement down my spine. She didn't seem surprised by Julia's suggestion. In fact, it almost felt like they had planned this together. My mind was spinning, but even as my thoughts raced, my body was already responding to the possibility of what they were offering. Without another word, Julia stood up and held out her hand, pulling me up from the couch. I followed her. We walked down the hall to the guest room. Anna trailed behind us, the quiet hum of her presence making the moment feel even more surreal. The guest room was softly lit, the sheets neatly folded on the bed, and the air was thick with anticipation. I could feel the tension building between the three of us, an electric charge that seemed to grow stronger with every passing second. I glanced at Julia, then at Anna, my pulse quickening as they exchanged another silent look. There was something happening here, something I didn't fully understand yet, but it was undeniable. The night had taken a turn, and there was no going back. Julia led me to the bed, her hands gentle but firm as she guided me to sit down. She smiled at me, that same playful smile she had worn all evening before turning to Anna. "Shall we?" she asked, her voice low, almost conspiratorial. Anna nodded, a soft smile playing on her lips as she stepped forward. My breath caught in my throat as I watched her, my mind racing with possibilities. There was a feeling in the room that I couldn't quite describe, a mixture of excitement, curiosity, and something deeper. something that made my skin tingle with anticipation. Julia and Anna stood in front of me, their movements slow and deliberate, as if they were taking their time, savoring the moment. Julia's hand reached out, brushing against my arm in a way that made my pulse quicken. There was something different in her touch tonight, something more intimate, more deliberate. She smiled at me, her eyes filled with a kind of mischief that I hadn't seen in a long time. Anna moved closer, her presence a quiet hum of warmth beside me. She didn't say anything, but the way her eyes met mine told me everything I needed to know. There was no awkwardness between us, no hesitation. It was as if the three of us had been moving toward this moment for a long time, even if we hadn't realized it until now. Julia leaned in, her lips brushing against my ear as she whispered, "Relax. Just enjoy it." I nodded, my body responding instinctively to her words, to the way her breath felt against my skin. Anna's hand found mine, her fingers lacing with mine in a gesture that felt both comforting and intimate. I could feel the heat of their bodies, the way their presence seemed to fill the room, and it was all I could do to keep my breathing steady. Julia's hand moved to my chest, her touch light but purposeful. She wasn't rushing, wasn't hurrying toward any particular goal. Instead, she seemed to be savoring the moment, letting the tension build slowly between the three of us. It was a dance, a slow, intimate dance that none of us were in a hurry to end. The night stretched on. This wasn't about reaching a climax as quickly as possible. It was about something more, about savoring each second, letting the tension build until it was almost unbearable. Julia's lips brushed against mine, her kiss slow and tender. She tasted like wine, her breath warm against my skin as she deepened the kiss, her hand resting gently on the back of my neck. Anna's hand remained on mine, her presence grounding me as the intensity between the three of us continued to grow. I could feel the weight of their attention, the way their eyes lingered on me, as if they were watching for every reaction, every flicker of emotion that crossed my face. There was a quiet intimacy in the way they touched me, in the way they moved around me, and it made my heart race in ways I hadn't expected. As the night wore on, the atmosphere in the room shifted once again. The playful energy that had filled the earlier part of the evening gave way to something deeper, something more intense. The touches became more deliberate, the whispers softer, the tension between the three of us growing heavier with each passing minute. Julia's hands moved over my body, her touch slow and purposeful. She wasn't in a hurry, wasn't rushing toward any particular goal. Instead, she seemed to be savoring the way my body responded to her touch, the way my breath hitched in my throat with every soft caress. Anna was right there beside her, her movements just as slow, just as deliberate. The two of them worked together in perfect harmony, their hands exploring, their lips brushing against my skin in a way that made my pulse race. It was as if they were playing a game, testing my limits, seeing how far they could push me before I lost control. But I didn't want to rush. I wanted to savor every second, to let the night stretch on for as long as possible. The tension between us was thick, almost palpable, and I knew that once we crossed the line, once we gave in to the desire that had been building all night, there would be no going back. The hours seemed to blur together as the night deepened. Julia and Anna continued their slow, deliberate dance, their touches and kisses drawing me closer to the edge without ever pushing me over. It was a game, a beautiful, intoxicating game that left me breathless and wanting more. Every touch felt like a spark, every kiss like a promise of something more. But the three of us seemed content to let the moment stretch on, to let the tension build until it was almost too much to bear. There was no need to rush, no need to hurry toward the climax. We had all night, and we intended to savor every second of it. I could feel my body trembling with anticipation. Julia's hands moved over me, her lips brushing against my neck in a slow, deliberate caress. Her breath was warm against my skin with every exhale. I closed my eyes, letting myself be swept away by the sensations. It felt like time had stopped, and there was nothing in the world except the three of us, caught in this shared moment of desire. Every soft kiss, every light touch seemed to hold the weight of something deeper, something we had only just begun to understand. Anna's hand trailed gently across my chest, her fingers light and teasing as they explored every inch of my skin. I could feel the warmth of her body close to mine, her presence a constant, steady hum that heightened everything around me. The room was filled with a quiet tension, the kind of anticipation that grows and grows, never quite reaching its peak but staying just on the edge, keeping us all there, suspended in the intensity of the moment. Julia's lips moved from my neck, trailing down to my shoulder, her touch becoming firmer, more insistent. She knew exactly how to draw out the anticipation, how to make me crave more without giving into it. I could feel her fingers tightening slightly as they traced a path along my back, a quiet reminder that she was in control, guiding the rhythm of the night, drawing out every second. Anna shifted beside me, her touch matching Julia's in its slowness, in its deliberate pace. There was an unspoken understanding between the two of them, a synchronicity that made the experience feel even more intimate, even more profound. I could feel the connection between them, as though they were working together to weave this delicate moment around me, carefully holding me in a place where desire simmered just below the surface, ready to boil over, but never quite reaching the point of no return. I opened my eyes to find both of them watching me, their gazes heavy with a shared intensity that sent another wave of heat through me. The look they exchanged between themselves, as though they were silently communicating, only added to the tension. They were in this together, and I was the one they were playing with, the one they were drawing closer and closer to the edge. The slow dance of their hands over my body became more purposeful, more focused, but still there was no rush. It was a game, one that they were determined to prolong, making me feel every second of it. The teasing had become an art form. One kiss on my shoulder, a light brush of fingers across my chest, followed by a lingering caress that left my skin tingling in its wake. I was trapped in a web of sensation, and they were the ones spinning it, keeping me wrapped up in the moment, unable to think of anything else. Julia leaned in closer, her lips hovering near my ear, her breath hot and quick. "How does it feel?" she whispered, her voice low and husky, sending another ripple of anticipation through me. She knew exactly how I felt, but she wanted to hear it, wanted me to say it out loud. And there was no hiding it. I was completely at their mercy, and we all knew it. "Incredible," I murmured, my voice hoarse with need, my breath hitching in my throat as Julia's hand moved lower, her fingers tracing the contours of my body with the same slow, deliberate care she had shown all night. I could feel Anna's presence beside me, her hand still moving in gentle, circular motions over my chest, grounding me in the moment, reminding me that she was there too, part of this intimate game that the three of us were playing. Julia's lips brushed against mine in the softest of kisses, a teasing promise that made my pulse quicken. She pulled back slightly, her eyes locking onto mine, and for a moment, everything else faded away. The connection between us was electric, and I knew she could feel it too, the way our bodies responded to each other, the way every touch seemed to ignite something deeper inside both of us. Anna's hand slid up to my neck, her touch gentle yet firm as she leaned in, her breath warm against my other ear. "We're not done yet," she whispered, her voice just as teasing, just as full of playful desire as her sister's. The combination of their whispers, their touches, their presence surrounding me was almost too much to bear, but at the same time, I didn't want it to end. I wanted this moment to stretch on forever, for the tension between us to keep building, to keep simmering just beneath the surface. Julia shifted beside me, her body pressing lightly against mine as her hand moved to Anna's, their fingers entwining in a way that made me feel the connection between the two of them even more. They were working together in perfect harmony, building the tension between the three of us without ever letting it reach its peak. It was a slow burn, a flame that grew brighter and brighter with every passing minute, and I was caught in the middle of it, completely captivated. They both leaned in closer, their lips brushing softly against my skin, Julia on one side and Anna on the other. Their kisses were light, teasing, making my breath hitch with every soft press of their mouths against me. I could feel the heat of their bodies, the way they moved in sync, creating a rhythm that I couldn't help but follow. As the night stretched on, it became clear that Julia and Anna were determined to draw this out as long as possible. Every touch, every kiss, was designed to keep me on the edge, to build the anticipation to an almost unbearable level. My heart was racing, my body trembling with the need to give in to the desire that had been building between us all night, but they wouldn't let me. Not yet. They were in control, and I was more than happy to let them take the lead, to let them guide me through this night of slow-burning passion. Every second felt like an eternity, every touch a promise of more to come, and yet we never crossed that final line. It was a delicate balance, one that they maintained with an expert hand, keeping me in a constant state of anticipation without ever letting a game of control, and they were both masters at it. They knew exactly how to keep me on the edge, how to make every touch, every kiss feel like the start of something more, without ever letting it reach its peak. My body was on fire, my heart racing, but they didn't rush. They were in no hurry, and neither was I. I could feel the tension between us growing thicker with every passing second, the desire between the three of us building to a level that was almost unbearable. And yet, we stayed in that moment, in that place where the anticipation was everything, where the promise of what was to come was more powerful than the act itself. They kept me there, on the edge, teasing and touching, drawing out every second until I could hardly breathe, until my body trembled with the need for release. But still, they didn't give in. They knew that the longer they kept me there, the more intense the moment would be when it finally arrived. As the night wore on, the boundaries between us blurred, the lines between reality and fantasy fading into the background. We were caught in the moment, the three of us moving together in perfect harmony, our bodies responding to each other in a way that felt both natural and electric. Julia and Anna had turned the night into something more than just a game. It was a dance, a slow, intimate dance that none of us wanted to end. And as the first light of dawn began to filter through the curtains, I knew that this was a night I would never forget. It wasn't just the physical connection that made it special. It was the way they had drawn it out, the way they had kept me on the edge, building the tension between us until it felt like we might never reach the end. It was the anticipation, the promise of more that had made the night so unforgettable.